Well, this looks very different from here. I have been just sitting in the audience for a while. I know this is right after lunch, and most of the after lunch sessions are meh, right. Everyone hates it. I don't know why I love these sessions, after lunch sessions, because I think I kind of figured that you might not be able to tell if it was my presentation or just the post-lunch slump if you find yourself drifting, right? So around that note, I don't know, they're in front of me. I'll talk about a technology which has captured everyone's imagination, and I hope you're able to, now you can see the presentation. And you would have already heard a lot of use cases, maybe in drug discovery, in clinical note summarization, or health plan summarization. And the beauty of these use cases are it really divides, I think, the healthcare world in two. Either you have use cases where you have to do some sort of a complete reimagination of the business, how you're going to run it, or they can make your existing processes a little bit more efficient. So for instance, if you have clinical notes, you could have an ambient device listening to a provider and a patient conversation, transcribe that particular conversation, and then just the large language model can create a summary and can push it to an EHR, right? And what that does is I see my animation is not working. Sorry about that. And what this does is the GenAI could be broadly, focused on two vectors. The first one is the business reinvention, where you really think about how we're going to leverage GenAI to reimagine our businesses, to make our business process a little bit more efficient, a little bit more faster. And then, given your tech teams would have to implement those solutions, GenAI could be used to give your development teams, your product teams, your QA teams a little bit more productivity boost. And today I'm going to be talking about both the things. How can you really get started with GenAI in your organization, and how you can create that productivity boost for your development teams, and what is that I have been seeing, and what is that we have been seeing. Before I get started, maybe we can just do a quick show of hands. How many of you have been actually tinkering or playing with GenAI? Just a show of hands. Yeah, that's what I thought. Practically everyone. No, keep your hands up. And how many of you are building active proof of concepts using generative AI? Active proof of concepts. Yeah, I figured half of the hands went down. And then out of the ones who have been doing proof of concepts, how many of you have pushed them in production yet? I got 3 or 4 hands. Pretty good. What I am going to be talking about is how you can, for all of you who have not pushed GenAI or have not started tinkering with it or building proof of concepts or have not pushed this in production yet, I'm going to be talking about a simple framework as to how you can take GenAI and push this in front of your members, in front of your internal staff. But before I do that, I'll just talk about the 3 distinct flavors of implementation that I have seen of GenAI. One is something really simple. I think you consume a GenAI app. That app comes with its own, whatever large language model that it's using behind the scenes, it uses that. So you take something off the shelf, do a per month, per developer, or per month, per user kind of pricing, and you bring in GenAI to power that particular business use case. The second case is really like a hybrid implementation, which is the most probably perhaps the most popular use case, at least that I have seen, or the ones that we have built, in which you build a custom app which either works off of your proprietary or it works off of a proprietary large language model, like your developers can call OpenAI API, or you could have deployed a large language model inside your premises because you're just more concerned about security, right? So that's a second model. And the third model is native, full-blown. Like you really invest hundreds of millions of dollars in building a large language model and building the entire full stack of GenAI in your solution. Look, there are multiple variables, there are multiple dimensions, there are multiple vectors that could allow you to choose a strategy. I have listed 4 strategies that I have seen it, work, or when I speak to other product and engineering leaders, these are perhaps the 4 things that they focus on. The first one, being the time to market, and they all go from left to right, as you can see the arrow. If you were buying something off the shelf and giving it to your internal users or to your members, it's the easiest solution, right? So there is a cost, there's security. You go from least security, to the highest security. There could be, the dollar value, of it. And then, of course, there is an impact of it. Maybe when you build your own models with your own training data, the kind of impact that it could create, could be unparalleled. So on that note, I'll share a very quick 5-point, generative AI framework that you can use to get started. By no means this is exhaustive. This could have been a 25-point framework. These are the kind of things that I see which are generally not talked about or which could be critical, to a development team, and that's the reason why I've included these 5 points. But this could very well be something else, depending upon your use case. So the very first thing that you need to keep in mind if you're still thinking of, bringing Gen AI in your company is just baselining your investment appetite. I think there is probably a misnotion that we will build the web and the mobile apps the way we were doing it, and we would just basically attach it with some sort of an API, and it's just the cloud model, it works, and it's going to be pretty inexpensive. But that's not how it works. So all the people who have, the people that have deployed Gen AI in production, I would love to, those 4 people that I would love to talk to. But it generally turns out to be very expensive, very fast. So even if you are using, let's say, the GPT-4 model, which is by far, the best right now in terms of quality, if you were to do that, and if your app only had, let's say, 10,000 active users, just 10,000 active users, maybe just doing 10 transactions with a large language model, making it 10,000 to 10, like 100,000 daily transactions. The daily cost is pretty insignificant. It's $4,500 a day to power that particular GPT-4 transactions. But if you were to look at a yearly cost, it adds up to $1.6 million, right? And it's still insignificant, when compared to an army of machine learning engineers that you would have to deploy or building your own model. But still $1.6 million, with just a 10,000 daily active user base is not insignificant. So that's something you need to consider. So I would recommend, you starting with just doing all the worst case scenario planning. Second, GPT cache, or like the caching, is already maturing, that you could basically cache your prompt and the response from the large language model so that you don't have to incur a transaction cost every single time, right? So that's something, to keep in mind. Second is reimagining your entire user experience strategy. It's not something that you build your web and mobile apps the traditional way. There's a large language model behind the scenes. You're going over the internet if you're using an API. And there are a lot of incredible latency issues that I have witnessed, and I'm sure people who have deployed the apps in production would have witnessed. The second thing is the user experience is somewhat inconsistent. It's not that it's going to give you back the same result every single time. It's not that it's going to reframe or it's going to frame the response in a certain way every single time. LLMs are stochastic in nature, right? There is a probability, right, that it will respond in a given way or not. But the technology is maturing. There are more frameworks that are coming in the market. The best one that I have seen so far is a framework called guardrails.ai. And what you could do is you can codify the kind of responses that you're expecting from the large language model. And if it was not to give that response, you can make a call again, right? Or second, completely reimagine your user experience strategy. All the large language model providers, all the cloud providers, like Google, Microsoft, even Apple, right? They have got guidelines, for how to really design and build AI systems. It's called defensive UX, that you let the user know that they are talking to AI. And there are multiple actionable user experience strategies that you could deploy in your web and mobile apps that are using large language models. So, and Google has got a fascinating, AI design strategy. They have got these papers, up on their website. Your teams could download it. Third, this is the most talked about topic anyway, and you would have heard it hundreds of times already, like understanding and managing the risk. Again, there are maybe like dozens of risks, but I have just listed the few ones that I have seen, over and over again. Like, it'll give you biased results because it's just trained on large amount of, data, and you just don't know, what the data sources are. Just like, I don't know how many techies are in the house, but there used to be SQL injection attacks. Right now, there are prompt injection attacks. People can inject a prompt or modify a prompt and have LLM respond in a very different way to what you intended to, right? There could be data leaks of you sharing confidential, your company data, with a large language model, or there are hallucinations. It gives, convincing, or it will give you very convincing, grammatically correct answers, but those answers will be wrong, right? And in those times you wish, gosh, you wish you knew the art of hallucination well, right? So that you can get out of tricky situations, but it does it really well. And if that's something that, you look at, maybe you can look at, if you are more concerned about biased results, you can look at reinforcement learning, through human feedback, you can train your model. Again, guardrails.ai, could help, in terms of hallucinations or in terms of, biased results. If you're worried about the data leaks, OpenAI came up with a SOC 2 compliant enterprise version of ChatGPT that you can install within your premise. Of course, I spoke about, the defensive user experience, and then just basically maturing up all your large language model operations tools, right? So that, you can look at hallucinations and you can do something about it, right? Then fourth is, really maturing your LLMOps stack and maturing it. And there are multiple tools out there. This space, I think, is going to get hotter, by every passing month. There are already multiple players, multiple companies, just trying to give an entire LLM ops stack in which you can evaluate your models. And you can evaluate your model based upon, different parameters. Again, cost, latency, the param size, the fine tuning, of it. Or you can do prompt management. They offer you a playground where the techies, the product managers, and all the non-technical people can, just play with the prompt and see the kind of response that they get from a large language model. And then you can version those prompts. You can deploy the prompts, from that particular, LLMOps tool itself. Or you can just, basic monitoring of how your app is performing. That's something you can do. And the last thing which I wanted to talk about is not the tech angle, but the human angle in all of that. And if you're deploying, your GenAI apps for customer service, for developer productivity, you really have to think about, how these roles will evolve over a period of time. What kind of new trainings, what kind of new skills, are these people are going to require so that they can progress, in their career. So I've shared, this, again, like I was saying, this could have very well been a 25 or a 20-point framework. The 5 points, that I have shared, with you are, just do the worst case budget planning. That is definitely required. You just can't build the apps the same way like what you had been doing earlier. You have to really, look at your entire user experience, strategy. You really have to look at all the risks that are applicable, to your scenario and manage it. The tooling, the ecosystem. There are a lot of products out there to alleviate the risks that come with large language models. Then really thinking of, just like in your regular apps, you have your entire DevOps, really thinking of, LLMOps, or like you would have machine learning, you would have MLOps, just think of, MLOp or LLMOps. And the last thing is really looking at the human angle and rebuilding your workforce. So those were the 5 things, that I shared. And then I want to talk about, like I was saying, there are really 2 broad vectors. One is, the business reinvention, whether you're making your existing processes more efficient or you're reimagining those processes, the 5-point framework that I walked you through. This is, you could leverage GenAI, to give your development teams a productivity boost so that they can ship the products to the market faster. And the GenAI tools are available right from, ideation to realization or ideation to rollout. There are tools that your teams could use. So for instance, if they were doing, ideation and design, now like Figma and Adobe have got all GenAI tools, baked into their platform. Or if you are doing development, or if you could give your developers GitHub Copilot. Or your QA engineers, again, you could give them GitHub Copilot, and they could generate the test cases, automation test scripts, from it. And what we have done is, by the way, we started on this journey maybe early this year, maybe sometime, in February, March. And, the direction from Sean, our CEO, was clear that we really need to build and we need to get on top of this technology so that A, we can help our clients build GenAI apps and also help our development teams run faster and pass that efficiency back to our clients. And what we have done is we have created a platform called ePulse, ePulse AI, right? That works on top of these tools. It's an abstraction layer that gives you enough guardrails, has got enough security, usage patterns, a proven prompt library that comes in it that allows development teams to do ideation, development, and just do the QA part of it. And I have all sets of demos of ePulse AI and the other work that we have done in the innovation room. And I would love it, if you could. I'll be there. I would love it if you want to. To collaborate with you or just to show you the demos and show the work that we have done. So on that note, there are 3 seconds remaining, and I'm done, on time. Yeah, okay? So thank you so much.